Hello, 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 and welcome into Coach's Corner. I am your host, Luke Kochevar, as always. We're back with a new episode of Coach's Corner, a day late, but that's okay. No worries about that. And we have some college football stuff to talk about right out the gate. I don't think a lot of NFL, big news outside of Kevin Byard going to the Eagles. I think that's a really good move, a really big move for an Eagles defense that didn't need it, but they did it anyway. Embarrassment of riches, I guess, but college football, I feel like we have to talk on what is happening in Michigan, what they're doing, what this could potentially mean for them. And frankly, I don't. It's bad. It's a bad scandal. Don't get me wrong. It is not great. Not awesome news for the Michigan Wolverines, who have had this resurgence under Jim Harbaugh, and it's kind of been all hunky dory. Oh, Michigan's back. They're actually a good program again. They actually have built something. But now it's just gonna have this dark cloud over it, and if the results from whatever this is, this scandal is a sign stealing scandal, I should say that first and foremost, without it's a tongue twister or something. What this could mean for Jim Harbaugh, if there's any penalties leading up to this, what could happen to Michigan's program. I don't think it's in danger of being cut or anything. It's not like an SMU situation, but they could face some real heavy difficulties going forward with scholarships, I guess. Any sort of restrictions, I guess, for their team. Does Jim Harbaugh get pushed out? Is this kind of one of those scandals where, we had the burger thing, burger place thing with recruiting before the season, which was kind of dumb, but now we have this on the, back end of this season is the same, season of, trouble that Harbaugh's in. Is this going to be the time that he makes the jump to the NFL? He's been teasing it for a couple of years now, with flirting with the Vikings job, flirting with the Broncos job. Is this a type of thing that now maybe they move off of, NFL X team moves off of their coach, and do they pivot to Harbaugh? Do they have interest in Harbaugh, who has now been caught up in this type of scandal? Does an NFL team want that? And I mean, NFL has no shame. I think that's pretty safe to say. They have no shame whatsoever. So they would be willing to take on someone like Jim Harbaugh with ease, because he's a pretty dang good NFL coach, and he went to a Super Bowl, and he made Colin Kaepernick and Alex Smith a NFC powerhouse, kind of. I mean, they had a lot of good players on that team, not just those two quarterbacks. But point is, he was a successful NFL coach, and I think teams would be really open to welcoming him in. But will Michigan, take that harsh of an action that they don't want him anymore because of another scandal like this? Just the way Harbaugh operates, do they just not want to deal with this anymore? And I think that's a big question Michigan has to kind of look in the mirror, because I think they're going to get punished. I don't think this doesn't seem like an investigation with all the evidence that we have between Connor Stallion's LinkedIn, the ticket buying, the just the knowledge that we currently have, the public has. What we know about what Connor Stallions has been doing is kind of substantial compared to imagine what the actual NCAA has. So it's I don't know where Michigan's going to go from here. I do think that they're still a good team. I don't think them stealing signs or anything. I don't think that was a big factor in why they're winning games or not. But definitely helps, I bet. So that's an interesting thing that we have going on in Michigan. And then, I mean, just talk about the rest of the college football playoff. I mean, the prediction, because I think we're going to get those standings. I think we're going to get the official, playoff committees, teams, I think next week. I believe it's the first week in November. And I mean, this is what the standings look like right now. And obviously, I think we know the AP top 25 is not what the playoff committee top 25 is. I think it's normally this is more media based, but the playoff committee ranks them differently in their own unique way. So, we've seen Mississippi State be top one, the first ever, I think, top one team was Mississippi State during Dak Prescott's last year, and then they quickly fell out. Tennessee was the number one team for a minute there when they were going to Georgia to play them last year, and they got blown out. So what will be the results here? If I had to make a prediction, I don't think Georgia will be one. I'll say that much. I think the playoff committee will just, kind of put them down to 2 or 3, just because they haven't looked great in a lot of their wins, and I don't know. It's a gut feeling, but I don't hate it. But if I had to make a top four prediction right now, the way that I think they'll, if let's say I was on the playoff committee, I was voting for my top four teams. I think I'd go Georgia number one, Ohio State number two, Michigan number three, and Washington number four. I think that's right. I think that's what I would go with because actually, switch it up, switch it up. I'm indecisive. This is how hard it is. This season it's a very difficult. This would have been the perfect 12-team playoff because we cut it off at Ole Miss, or let's say they put in Utah over like Penn State. Like Penn State drops out or whatever. Like we'll have Georgia, Ole Miss, which we will have that in real life. We have Oregon State, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State again, I guess. Alabama, Florida State. That's a really good. Or no, we'll get Alabama. Yeah, no, Alabama. Yeah, that makes sense. Oregon, Washington again, Oklahoma, Texas. Like those are some really dang good football games if we get the 12-team playoff. But we got to see if that happens. So okay, revising it. I'd have Georgia number one. I'd have Ohio State number two. I'd go Florida State number three, and Washington number four. Because at the end of the season, we're gonna have Michigan or Ohio State out of it. I think that's safe to say. I think that will open up for Florida State or Washington to sneak into the playoff. One of those teams will like maybe lose a game, and I think one of them will have to sneak in somehow. And I don't believe in Oklahoma. I'll just be honest. I don't think Oklahoma's. I don't think they're for real. I mean, I don't think the other team like Florida State and Washington are that much better, but Oklahoma feels especially fishy. So that's my top four. That's my top four: Georgia, Ohio State, Florida State, Washington. Because Florida State did blow out LSU. They did go on the road and beat Clemson. They did beat Duke. Like they've had some good wins. They've had some quality wins. I can't downplay them in the ACC. Just like I think the ACC is the worst Power 5 conference. But I can't say that Florida State doesn't have impressive wins because they do. I mean, they do. I mean, on the road at Clemson at noon is an impressive win, even though it was in overtime. But and Clemson's not that good. But regardless, I still think that's a good win. And I mean, the teams I think could make this interesting. Like if I had to have the first two out, I think Michigan and Oklahoma are obvious. But I mean, Oregon I think could be in the mix. Alabama I think will be in the mix. Teams like that. Texas I think is way more of a wild card now that Quinn Ewers is hurt. And Penn State, I can't believe in James Franklin. I think James Franklin and Lincoln Riley, biggest losers of the weekend, both lost games that they frankly had to win. I mean, like Lincoln Riley has the Heisman winner. He has all this talent at USC, and he still can't field a defense worth a damn. I don't know, man. And then James Franklin is 0-18 now, I think, against Ohio State and Michigan in his career. It's just a terrible look, and I don't know what he's ever cooking. It doesn't feel like he's ever cooking anything worthwhile. So yeah, they're bottom of the barrel. Get them out of here. So Penn State, sadly, is I think done for college football playoff consideration. So with all that being said, I think we move on to our picks. Move on to the college football picks. We had a wonderful week in the Lucas Coach for college football picks segment. We went 8-3. 8-3. That's pretty good. Going over it, we have started off great. James Madison Thursday night -3.5. They were easy money. The undefeated team. They're finally in the top 25. It sucks that they won't be on a bowl game because of NCAA rules. I don't know why NCAA just makes up rules. I feel like they're a governing body that can really do whatever they frankly want to do. But they just choose not to do things that should be just, like letting James Madison be in a bowl game. What a sham. It's a sham of an institution, and I don't know why they're just such, sticklers for the rules or sticklers about, like, everything. Like, we've had the floodgates open in the, NCAA NIL stuff, but then there's like little stuff like they haven't figured out the transfer portal rules how they should be, because Tez Walker, who finally got reinstated at North Carolina, they held him out for all these weeks, and I mean he's a really good wide receiver, and we wouldn't have known that, and he would have had to waste a whole year of his life, his career, to not playing football because of the stupid NCAA transfer rules. It's just ridiculous. Get it together. But anyway, James Madison minus 3.5 money. Air Force minus 10.5. Navy pulled a really clutch move by trying to go for 2 on their last touchdown. That saved us big time. Air Force minus 10.5. What a good team. Penn State and Ohio State under 45.5. That was the easiest bet of the weekend for me. Actually, second easiest. We'll get to the easiest later. Alabama minus 8.5 against Tennessee. That was looking so dead in the first half, but then Tennessee just rolled over it and died like a cockroach, and Alabama covered that with ease. Toledo, Miami, Ohio plus 2.5 against Toledo. If you're listening to last week, this was when I flipped on air. I flipped it from Toledo to Miami, Ohio, and we almost got it. We almost got the win by Miami, Ohio, but the 6-1 covering, I think Red Hawks or whatever Miami, Ohio is, they lost to Toledo. Did not cover that. FAU plus 3 against UTSA. That was I'm going to ride with FAU because you screwed me the week before. FAU did not do good against UTSA. This was the easiest lock of the week. Michigan minus 24.5 at Michigan State. Michigan State they are the program that just doesn't want to play football anymore. Their season has been so terrible. It's been so tumultuous. I think that's a word. They don't want to be around anymore. They're like if I think you should leave skit where he's wearing like the fake prosthetic face. He's like, I don't want to live here anymore. That's Michigan State. They don't want to be playing football anymore. I think they're ready to wrap up the season. And they put Hitler on the Jumbotron. they did that. They had a trivia thing running, like a YouTube trivia show, and it had where was Hitler from. And if there's anything you don't need to put on the Jumbotron to all your fans, it's the H-man. So that was tough for Michigan State, but Michigan did cover that 24.5 with ease. Florida State versus Duke over 49.5. That one was getting sweaty towards the end, but Florida State came through big time with 2 late touchdowns. Georgia State plus 3.5 at Louisiana Lafayette. This felt like a dead one. This one felt very dead in the water. Louisiana Lafayette was driving. They were in the red zone. They could have forced overtime, really could have thrown a monkey wrench into this, but Georgia State got an interception, a clutch red zone interception, and managed to pull out of there with a win, plus 3.5. Thank you very much. Wazoo at Oregon under 62.5. First time the Washington State offense has looked alive since, Wisconsin. It's been very tough for them, but they really showed up, I guess, on Saturday. Kind of screwed this up for me. And Oregon also looked very good as well, so that one went over. Then Utah plus 7 at USC. They won that outright. That one felt like easy money. A Utah team that just kind of plays USC very well and just doesn't really take crap from them. Despite being, I guess, I don't want to say the ugly stepsister, but a much just tougher brand of football that isn't as well known as USC, obviously, but they're still pretty dang good. So, moving on to this week, we start with a Thursday night showdown in Statesboro. Georgia Southern taking on Georgia State. I have Georgia Southern minus 1.5. Southern has been pretty good so far this year. On offense, I think they're finding something. They've been winning some games by a lot lately. 4-0 at home, 3-1 against the spread at home. And Georgia State's a really good team, and it wouldn't shock me if this goes either way. I think this is actually just going to be a really good competitive game. But Georgia Southern, I think, will win this game. I like them at home here. I like them. Just their offense is pretty electric, and I think Georgia State's squeaked by in some games, so that 6-1 record could easily probably be like 4-3, but you take your wins. So next one I have is going to be the lower part here. Let me scroll down. SMU minus 20.5 against Tulsa. SMU murdered Temple this past week, 55-0, I think. So them minus 20.5 against Tulsa, who I don't think is very good either. They're at home. I think this will be a good showing out for SMU. They're about to join the ACC. That's kind of an underrated fact here, but the minus 20.5. The other game, Duke at Louisville. I have the over 46.5 here. Both these offenses I do think like to score. Duke impressed me with their offense this past week against Florida State. I thought they were competitive in that game. I think they can hold up their end of the bargain. I think Louisville will score a lot of points. I like them at home. I think they're a good home team. 3:30. I mean, yeah, it's one of those. I was going to be worried if this was a noon start, but since it's 3:30, I think players will be woken up. I think they'll be ready to score some points. Notre Dame against Pitt. Notre Dame minus 20.5. I like this a lot for Notre Dame. This feels like a good blowout spot. They haven't had one of those games. I think they've just had some tough games. I mean, Ohio State, USC, tough games. I mean, they lost to Ohio State, blew out USC recently, lost to Louisville. They've had a tough stretch here. I think this Pitt is kind of a softball here for them. I like them to win this game. Pitt is not a very good team. And 3 touchdowns, I think, feels reasonable for Notre Dame. Next, this pick is making me a little bit nervous the more I think about it. Kansas State minus 17.5 against Houston. Houston has been frisky lately. I thought Houston was the worst team in the Big 12. I think there's still a good chance that's true. But they've been frisky against teams lately. I don't know if I love this pick anymore. But I think Kansas State has found their identity a little bit. 4-0 at home, 4-0 against the spread at home. I like them to cover this. Win by 3 touchdowns basically. I think is a decent ask here, and I think Kansas State can deliver there. This one, where is it? This one is my lock of the week here. Oregon State at Arizona. I have Arizona plus 3.5 here. Oregon State is ranked number 12. They're 6-1, and you think that's this is a good team. They should go handle their business. Winning by 4 against an unranked team, not hard, right? However, Pac-12 after dark. It's 10:30 in Arizona, in Tucson. It's a formidable foe in Arizona, which I don't think that 4-3 record tells the story of what they've been this year. They killed Washington State, a team that beat Oregon State, and them plus the points here. I like them a lot. I like what they have. I think Arizona wins this game. I think they win it outright. So give me the 3.5. I think they win it, but I think they win the game, but I think they can lose by 3 at the same time. So I love this game. Next one, UNLV plus 7.5 at Fresno State. I think Fresno State is a good team, not a great team. I think UNLV is also a good team, not a great team. And I mean, for that reason, I think this shouldn't be a plus 7.5 line. I think this is, a less than a touchdown game. I think this will be a close one. And because of that, I think UNLV plus 7.5 feels like a good bet. Georgia versus Florida. That is the game this week for Georgia. The rivalry. What is it? The South's biggest cocktail party or outdoor cocktail party. Give me the overs, 47.5. I mean, both teams basically score 24 points. I feel like that's a good bet. I don't think both teams will score. I don't think it'll be tied 24-24 or anything, but I think UGA can clear that mark. I think Florida can get close to that mark. So, I mean, if you're doing the math there, Georgia getting over 24 and then Florida hovering around 14-20, I think that wins you this bet, and I like the over here. Next one I have is, where is it? Here it is. Wazoo at Arizona State. I have Wazoo minus 5.5. Arizona State is another team I thought was the worst in the Pac-12. They've been frisky lately, especially against Washington last week, but I think they used all their energy last week. Wazoo, I think, maybe has found their stride again. Cam Ward healthy, potentially. I like Wazoo to go on the road here, win by at least a touchdown. And Cincy at Oklahoma State, the over 52.5. Once again, Cincinnati, I mean, a lot of these teams that have joined the Big 12, I think are going to be fine in the long run, but right now they don't look great. And Cincinnati is another one of those teams that hasn't looked great. Oklahoma State started off the season slow, but I think they found something in Ollie Gordon, the running back. Offensive line has been really good. Alan Bowman's been consistent for him. 52.5 for a Big 12 team game feels relatively low. Like 58.5 for Houston at Kansas State feels like what this total should be. So for that reason, I think Oklahoma State will score a ton of points. Like I think they've, like I said, found something. Cincinnati, I think, can hold up their end, score a little bit, because I don't think the Oklahoma State defense is great. So give me this over. Then Purdue and Nebraska. I have Nebraska minus 2.5 here. Purdue, I don't know what they're playing for. Frankly, I don't like their coach. Don't love their quarterback. Purdue's, I think, going to be going through a rough stretch here in the Big Ten where they were looking up and up. Like, Aiden O'Connell was really good for them last year. Jeff Brom, I think, was a great coach for them. Jeff Brom at Louisville is a different guy now. Purdue's a different team now. I think Nebraska's, I don't want to say they've found something as well, but Nebraska, I think, is on more of an upswing than Purdue. So, give me Nebraska minus 2.5 here. And then last but not least, we have a really good game in the Pac-12 here. Oregon minus 6.5 at Utah. It's a big ask, but I do think Oregon is... This feels like the game where Oregon does handle their business. They just do a good job of playing up to their competition. And I think Utah's going to be a very tough team to put away. But I like them to win here. This seems like... one of those spots where the public is high on Utah, like the frisky Utah team, but then Oregon comes out and handles business, and everyone's like, man, if only Oregon didn't lose to Washington that week. So those are my picks for the week. I like the board this week. I liked it last week, but I like this one as well. It feels more 50-50 than last week, but that doesn't mean we're out of it, you know. So, either way, moving on, NFL action, we have Tampa Bay at Buffalo tonight. Buffalo's on a real downswing. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know how they're going to rebound, really, because defense has really just been taking a beating on injuries. The offense has not looked sharp. Ken Dorsey, I think, is actively hurting his, just his chances to keep his job. It just doesn't feel like an organized group on offense. But then Tampa Bay, I don't think, is a very good team. I mean, they just lost to the Falcons in a way they shouldn't have. And I mean, this feels like a must-win. This is a must-win game for Buffalo. I'll stamp it as that because it's at home. Like I said, against a Tampa Bay team that shouldn't have the business beating you, but when you've played as bad as Buffalo has recently, they could. So that's a tough one. But give me Buffalo. Atlanta at Tennessee here. I'd love Atlanta minus 2.5 here. I mean, going on the road is no easy task, but when you're playing a rookie quarterback and a player who's essentially a rookie quarterback, platooning quarterbacks for Tennessee potentially, got to take an Atlanta team, and Atlanta defense should have a field day. Like I said, Tennessee, Ryan Tannehill, I don't think is going to play. Sounds like Will Levis will get the start. Malik Willis might play. If Atlanta is the team that we think they are, which is a middling team that should make the playoffs, they should win this game against a bad Tennessee team. But once again, it's the Falcons. Minnesota at Green Bay. Minnesota's recovered very nicely from their terrible start. Green Bay's really fallen off since their solid start. You know, my Minnesota minus 1.5 feels really insulting to them based on the fact they just beat the 49ers. But I guess it is on the road. And, you know, I don't know. I frankly don't know. If there's a defense that's going to make Jordan Love look like a good quarterback again, it is Minnesota, but I like Minnesota to win this game. Houston at Carolina, battle of the first overall picks. First two picks, I should say. Carolina's trying to find that first win. This feels like a game where everyone should be on Houston, but then Carolina just comes out and wins it. Like, Carolina has to win a game eventually, right? And I think this is a good spot for them to do it at home against a Houston team who is good, but, I mean, can be beaten, you know? Jacksonville at Pittsburgh. Jacksonville kind of just handles Pittsburgh. That's kind of the thing that they do. Pittsburgh might have, maybe done something with their offense that give the good players the ball. Maybe that's a good strategy. Maybe Pittsburgh's bought into that. We'll see, but I do like the Jags. The Jags will win this game, but it'll be way too close for comfort. New Orleans at Indy. Colts have to win this game. Saints are in a down spiral right now. I think Alvin Kamara's helped out the offense a little bit, but they're still not clicking. That offense is bleh. The defense isn't much better. Indy is a fun team. Not a good team, but they're a fun team. Rams at Dallas. This feels like a Dallas blowout, but knowing how Dallas operates, coming off of a bye week, I could see them coming out slow to the Rams and losing, but then eventually winning. Give me Dallas, but not in a comfy way. Jets and Giants. I'd rather peel my eyes out than watch this game, but give me the Jets because of that defense. Philadelphia at Washington. Had a close game between these two teams earlier. I think this game won't be close. Give me Philadelphia minus 6.5. New England at Miami. This was another game that was kind of close early on, but in Miami now, I think this will be an ugly game, but like a low-scoring game where you don't expect it to be under, but it does go that way. But give me Miami to win that. Cleveland at Seattle. Deshaun Watson is out, so this should pave way for Seattle to win this game. But the Cleveland defense is really good, and Geno Smith has not been as good. Give me Seattle at home, though. I like them to win this game. Cleveland barely scraped out of Indianapolis with a win. I don't think they do that here. Baltimore at Arizona. This has to be a handle business game by Baltimore. But it also could be a letdown spot because, Baltimore did just handle business so well against Detroit that losing to the Cardinals would just be chef's kiss. Kansas City at Denver. Another handle business game. Denver did just win a game. They just played too, and Denver wasn't close in that game. Give me Kansas City here. Cincinnati at San Francisco. This is a good game. This has potential to be a high-scoring shootout, but the way Cincinnati's looked so far this season, I don't love it. And Brock Purdy might be out with a concussion. So this was pre-season, I think, a really good game, but now that we're here and we have some injuries at the quarterback position for San Fran, oh man, I hate this game. I hate this game so much. Give me San Fran to win this game. Cincinnati, I don't think has figured it out all the way. I think they're there, but they're not quite convinced of it. Chicago at the Chargers. If Tyson Bagent is playing again, this is a must-win for the Chargers. The way they've lost these last couple games has just been heartbreaking. They can't do that again, right? They can because of the Chargers, but Chargers cannot afford to lose this game. If they do, Brandon Staley's fired. We're getting early season Kellen Moore as interim head coach. It's going to be a real bad time for Chargers fans, but, Chicago's whatever. Las Vegas at Detroit. I don't know how this made it to a Monday night game. I don't. I frankly just have no idea how, because the Raiders, I don't think there was any scenario where the Raiders were going to be entertaining this season. But alas, we're here, and they're playing a Monday night game against a Lions team who's pretty good. So, give me the Lions there. Pretty easy money. So, with that being said, another week in the books for Coach's Corner. Sorry it's a little bit late here, but I'm your host, Lucas Coach. As always, make sure to like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Talk to your family about the show. Why not? Why not do that? So, I am your host once again, and I will see you guys next week. Goodbye.